Jason Porter was the kind of man who wore resilience like armor. At 34, he had the reputation of being the guy who never asked for help. Not once. Raised in a modest neighborhood in Milwaukee, he grew up watching his single mother juggle 2 jobs, never complain, and never ask anyone for a hand. "You handle your own," she'd say. And Jason lived by that. He worked as an auto mechanic, owned a small shop on the edge of town, and prided himself on solving every problem with grit and silence. If the roof leaked, he fixed it. If business dipped, he stayed late. If he got sick, he brushed it off. To him, asking for help meant weakness. It meant he wasn't enough. But things had been falling apart lately. Business was slow, debts were stacking up, and to make it worse, his back had given out 3 weeks ago lifting an engine block. He'd been working through the pain, gritting his teeth every time he crouched or lifted. But this morning, as he tried to hoist a muffler, he collapsed, pain searing down his legs. He lay on the cold cement floor of his shop, breathless, pride throbbing as much as his spine. Alone. Of course. Always alone. The bell over the shop door jingled. "Jason? You okay, man?" It was Malik, a college kid who sometimes helped out on weekends. He saw Jason on the floor and rushed over. "Jesus, what happened?" "I'm fine," Jason grunted. "Just slipped. Help me up." Malik hesitated. "You don't look fine. You need a doctor." "I said I'm fine. Just help me up." Malik reluctantly did. But Jason's legs trembled, and he had to grip the counter to stay upright. He waved Malik away, embarrassed and angry. Malik returned a few hours later, not alone. With him was Maria, a nurse who volunteered at a free clinic downtown. Jason tried to protest, but Maria was kind, firm, and not the sort to back down. "This isn't heroism, Jason," she said gently, examining his back. "It's denial. And it could cost you more than pride." He wanted to snap, to tell her to leave. But her words hit harder than he expected. That night, lying in bed with ice on his back, Jason thought about his mother. How strong she had been. But also how exhausted she always looked. He remembered one night, when he was 7, hearing her cry softly behind a closed door. He had never forgotten that sound. He realized he had misunderstood strength. Maybe strength wasn't doing everything alone. Maybe it was having the courage to admit when you couldn't. The next day, he did something he hadn't done in years. He picked up the phone and called his older brother, Eric, whom he hadn't spoken to in over a decade after a stupid argument. They talked for an hour. Jason told him about the shop, the debt, the pain. And Eric listened. Then he said, "I'll be there this weekend. We'll figure it out. Together." By Friday, Eric showed up with his toolbox and a few friends. Malik spread the word around town, and customers returned to support Jason's shop. Maria helped him set up a small medical fund to cover his treatment. Neighbors brought meals, and a retired mechanic offered to help part-time until Jason healed. Each act of kindness chipped away at the walls Jason had built. He began to see that asking for help wasn't a burden on others, it was an invitation for connection. For community. For healing that went deeper than just physical pain. One evening, Jason stood outside his shop, watching the sunset burn orange over the skyline. Eric stood beside him, sipping coffee. The garage was busy again. Life was stirring back. "You really let the cavalry in," Eric said with a grin. Jason chuckled. "Yeah. Took me long enough, huh?" Eric nodded. "But you did it. That's what matters." Jason took a deep breath. For the first time in years, he felt light. Not because everything was perfect, but because he wasn't carrying it alone anymore. He turned to Eric. "Thanks for showing up." Eric smiled. Always. You just had to ask. In a world that often tells us to tough it out, to be islands of independence, Jason learned the most human truth of all: we were never meant to walk alone. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is whisper, "I need help." And sometimes, that whisper is what brings the world back to your door. Here's your motivational story: Overcome Alone Mentality, crafted with emotional depth and an uplifting arc. Let me know if you'd like it adapted for audio narration, simplified for English learners, or translated into another language.